there, everyone. We just celebrated Easter yesterday, and if we were in school, I would have been reading this book to my kids. This is The Tale of Peter Rabbit. My mom used to read this to me when I was a little girl, too, but this is a different version, and I'm reading with permission from Scholastic, the publisher. Here's Peter, and he has on a cute little blue jacket. He's got buttons and little red slippers. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree. "Now, my dear," said Mrs. Old Rabbit one morning, "you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. He was put in a pie by Mrs. McGregor." Sounds like a pretty serious accident. "Now run along and don't get into mischief. I am going out," Mother said. Then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the woods to the baker's. She brought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed underneath the gate. First he ate some lettuces and some French beans, then he ate some radishes. Then, feeling a little sick, he went to look for some parsley. But round the end of the cucumber frame, who should he meet but Mr. McGregor. Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages. But he jumped up and ran after Peter and said, "Stop, thief! Stop, thief!" and chased him with a rake. Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden. He had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes in the cabbages and the other among the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went a little faster, so that I think he might have gotten away altogether if he hadn't run into a gooseberry net and got caught by large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons and quite new. Peter gave himself up for lost and shed great big tears. But his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows, who flew in great excitement and implored him to exert himself and escape. Well, Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve, which he intended to pop on the top of Peter, but he wriggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him, and rushed into the tool shed and jumped up into a can. It would have been a beautiful place to hide, but it was filled with so much water. Mr. McGregor was sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, maybe hidden under a flower pot. He began to turn them all over carefully, looking under one at a time. Presently Peter sneezed. Mr. McGregor was after him in no time and tried to put his foot on Peter, who jumped out the window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter, so he went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright. He had not the least idea which way to go. He was wet with sitting in the can, too. After a time, he began to wander about, going lippity-lip, lippity-lip, not very fast, but looking all around. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit like him to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out of the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the woods. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth she could not answer. She only shook her head at him. He started to cry again. Then he tried to find his way straight back across the garden. He became more and more puzzled. He came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still. Just now and then, the tip of her tail would twitch as if it were alive. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. Benjamin Bunny is a sequel book that also includes Peter Rabbit, and it's a good tale by the same author. He went back towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe going scratch, 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 scratch. He hurried into the bushes. But presently, as if nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon a wheelbarrow and peeped over the top. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned toward Peter, and right behind him was the gate. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go along a straight walk by some black currant bushes. But Mr. McGregor caught sight of him in the corner. But Peter didn't care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the woods outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up his little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten away the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired he flopped down on the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was his second little jacket and pair of shoes he had lost in a fortnight. I'm sorry to say, Peter was not feeling very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made him some chamomile tea and gave a dose of it to Peter. 1 tablespoon taken at bedtime, she said. But Flopsy and Mopsy and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. The end.